Hello and welcome to a new video. Unlike a lot of my other videos, typically about playthroughs or rule the waves or anything like that, this video will be about the update 2.2 for Aurora C Sharp. The update, which has long been anticipated, originally starting the development on September 7th, Steve, the developer, that is, it has such a degree of change that I believe it needs its own video to go over and discuss what is coming and why you should be excited for Aurora C Sharp 2.2. So, and to further on that point, we are coming up to the 3-year anniversary of Aurora C Sharp, with April, I believe, 20th. I don't remember the exact date, but it'll be April of this year. That will be the anniversary. In the video, or in this video, I'm going to be splitting it up into different chapters where I discuss different portions of the update that we know so far. Keep in mind that Steve is likely to add things to the change list, and that may mean that this video may have parts that are out of date. If you want to discuss more about the update, you can head over to my Discord in the description below. So I'm going to be splitting the video up between kind of 3 different parts. The first part is going to be going over minor changes and fixes that are not super massive impacts on the game, that don't have their own post for or post on the forums for, and that are just generally not mainly quality of life features, bug fixes, that kind of thing. The second part is going to be some of the more less important things, just a general overview, and then the third part is going to be primarily focused on specific big changes and the implications of those changes. You can use the chapters in the video, which will be in the description and also on the bar, to fast forward to any change that you particularly want. I will be trying to segment this video where each chapter will be discussing specific changes or certain sets of changes so that you don't have to watch the entire video, though if you do, it would be much appreciated. So let's begin with the normal changes, so small changes, fixes, that kind of stuff, before we get into the big stuff. So, fixes. A lot of fixes are going to be occurring. One fix that we do not know if it will be improving is the NPR bug. So if you don't know what the NPR bug is, essentially in 2.11, the current version of Aurora, if you start a game with NPRs on the map, they won't connect to your systems properly, and so this means you can never find NPRs, which is why most people suggest do not have NPRs on at game start. This isn't fixed here. However, the following fixes are coming. Reassign all admin commands now works. Fix bug that sometimes causes fleets to move with a minimum distance during close combat. This was especially a big issue with getting hit by swarm ships or close-in fighters with your beam weapons when you're very short range early tech. Fix bug that causes weapons to malfunction even when not firing due to 0 chance to hit. That is very good. Fix the lower shield button, so lower shield didn't work, I think. I haven't used shields too much, but that's definitely something to consider. Fix an error in the jump drive creation if minimum size is less than 10, and fix the bug that prevented MPRs from firing on the STO targets. And now, those are the kind of the general fixes. There's probably more bug fixes he's done behind the scenes, but those are just fixes he's posted. Again, in the description below, you can find the change list. Next, we have just minor changes. NPR warships may use boosted engines. So previously they couldn't use boosted engines. This will likely indicate a significant increase in NPR speeds, and that should present a significantly higher threat. Okay. Then NPR hull sizes will potentially be much higher, up to 3 times the current maximum. We may see 40 kiloton battleships. That is really awesome, because one thing that I always was very disappointed about is how small enemy ships tended to be. I mean, Swarm does have some bigger ships, Raiders sometimes have bigger ships, but NPR's always kind of had, maybe 7 to 15 kilotons. So if that's 3 times the current maximum, that may go up to 45 kilotons, for example, which could be a big deal in terms of difficulty. Active sensors and missile fire controls are now split into separate categories. So instead of it being one category, so, you go to your active sensor / missile fire control, it's now in 2 separate. This is good, reduces confusion, better. Weapon failures will occur during point defense, and we'll get into more of this in a little bit, but that's important. Missiles have had their cost reduced by 50% in terms of Gallicite, but they're now, that cost has now been brought into for Boronide. So while missiles will take the same amount of time to build, they will use much less Gallsite. So an overall buff to missiles there. There's a lot of stuff about missiles in this update, which we'll get to. Missile agility has been removed. Very controversial. I know a lot of hardcore Aurora players are not too happy about that change. But instead, all the missiles will have a maneuver rating of 10. So our missiles will be more like what you see MPRs in terms of speed and hit chance. That's more what when you see MPR missiles, when you see precursor missiles, that's the kind of stuff you're going to be dealing with. Races cannot create only mana closes, so on shipyard. There's added annual MSP consumption to fleet window. That's very useful, actually. Know how much MSP we're using. The list of ground units for loading will be shown with type abbreviation. A big change as well is after a shipping line has built 10 ships, it will no longer build small ships. And after a shipping line has built 20 ships, it will only build very large ships. That should improve performance quite significantly because Sensorleans will just be making millions of little tiny ships. Added display of rec options for Galactic Map and active, so you can turn off recs, which is really nice, properly. Then we had changed ground unit costing. Logistics modules got improved, so vehicle logistics will be actually better than infantry logistics, which it wasn't. Terraforming installations got changed from 75,000 cargo points to 50,000 cargo points, which is a significant improvement for them. And a bunch of other small changes, which I'm not really going to get into. However, they'll be on screen. You can have a look at them. You can have a look at the change list. Now we're going to get into some of the big stuff. So that was some of the smaller things, and they feed into the bigger changes that will be coming up. So the first big change that's going to be coming in is radiation reduction. So radiation is now, so in 2.1, it gets reduced by 100 per year after you nuke a planet. Now it will be reduced at 100 per year or 10% of current level per year, whichever is greater. So what this will mean is if you have 10,000 radiation, it'll take much less time, about 32 years compared to 100 years it would usually take in 2.1. This should mean that if you completely nuke a planet, it's not going to be useless for the next 10,000 years. Okay, useful. Next up, we have a big change. Supernovas will be added to Aurora. So supernovas, a completely new thing, added as an option for the Space Africa to trigger a supernova in known stars games. Although supernova cannons are usually high-mass stars or white dwarfs in special situations, there is no restriction on which stars may be chosen by the Space Master. It's restricted to known stars, so you can't have supernovas on non-known stars. And when it's done, when the impact's done, the strength of the supernova will grow weaker as its surface area increases when it reaches a star system. So this is intergalactic. This is not in-system. When a supernova goes off, it can hit other systems, and then it will irradiate everybody in that system and damage any ships and missiles, and the impact will differ at different light years. So if it has an atmosphere, it's going to take a lot more damage. If it has no atmosphere, it's going to take a lot more damage. If it has an atmosphere, it's still going to take quite a bit of damage. But and the distance it's going to be close to can absolutely just wreck things. Okay, and as you can see on screen here, you can see the population growth reduction if there is no atmosphere, and this could be a really cool thing that could be used in GM games and other things. But to add a supernova in for a star to go critical and then detonate, very cool. The fact that it can also transcend through different stars, and you can see on screen here the a supernova going off here, and that kind of effect and kind of trying to survive that could be very interesting. We're going to ship over the next change, and I'm going to go to the other one. Damage control has been changed. So damage control in 2.1 is a multiplier of the chance to repair a damage system during a given time period. For 2.2, each ship also gains a new damage control rating called Instant Damage Control Rating. This is now shown on the ship class or summary window and has two numbers by a dash. For example, DCR 1015 would mean a ship with a damage control of 10 and an instant damage control rating of 15. So basically, when a ship receives internal damage and the component is deemed to be destroyed, there's a percentage chance equal the instant damage control rating that the component remains intact. So basically, this will mean that there'll be a little bit more influence on repairing things. So when something gets repaired and destroyed, there is a chance that the component will remain intact based on how good your damage control will be. And the reason this is important is it means that you actually may want to invest in damage control, because let's say you're in a beam fight, you get hit. Having a better damage control rating, like in real life, is going to mean that you have a much higher chance of containing the issue and fixing it, potentially, before it becomes an issue, and then keeping in the fight that a little bit longer. The next thing that's been added is a decontamination component to ground forces. This will assist in radiation cleanup, so you can decontaminate worlds that you have nuked into oblivion, and that can be done with vehicles and with decontamination components. Next up, again, I'm going to be skipping over a couple of these changes because they are small. There are a bunch of changes to ship modules that you'll start with. Cryogenic transport development costs have increased to 2000 RP. There is now a large cryogenic transport. There is a very large chute transport bay and a very large drop bay. There is a large cargo hold, which you now start with in both conventional and TN start. Okay, now we get into the ground forces section of the video. So in 2.2, what we can now essentially do is create templates, okay? And what these will allow us to do is essentially figure out our ground forces, okay? So if we want to create, you know, kind of a test of ground forces. So I'll let Steve kind of explain it. A new formation template will be created based on the selected template. The new template will be named current template year. If the existing template already entered 4 digits, they will be replaced by the current year. The new template will have the same rank, and existing ground formations with the existing template as the replacement will change the new formation for the replacement template. So what this will essentially do, and how this will work, is very cool, because what it will allow you to do is hit copy and update template, and that will then create a copied and updated template of that year with new tanks and new forces within that template, and that you don't need to do anything with. Okay, so if I read this correctly, if there were a post on unit so any improvements will be included. So this will automatically include new improvements, okay? So you will no longer need to go into a formation and change out each individual element. You can simply hit copy and update, and that will copy that element, give it a designation of the original year was 2300, now it's 2303, now 2303. And it will then give it all that new armor and that new racial weapon strength and all that other good stuff, and you then don't have to go in and individually do that. It's amazing for micromanagement that happens. Yeah, it'll be on screen what you need to do, but that is going to be really, really great for updating and keeping your stuff updated in terms of your ground forces. Okay. The next thing that's been changed is Raider Swarm and Invader start times. You can set the exact game time at which they will be able to appear. You can also change their chance of doing things like research facilities being added, new operational groups being created, starting tech points, etc. This specifically will help out conventional starts. Then we've got something called create formations from elements. Now, I was the one who suggested this change, and basically what this will allow you to do is you can create a empty formation that you can then put units elements into it if you want to divide formations up, which is really, really useful, because right now you would need an existing formation to put new stuff in. So really good change there. Another change that I suggested was that we're going to, again, be dealing with here. assign X weapons. So now there is a button which will allow you to input the number of weapons you want to assign that you can then, instead of assign all in ship combat window, drag it over. Let's say I want to assign 7 weapons, drag it over, done. This will massively improve box launcher fleets because you can just do, okay, assign 8, drag, 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 done. Okay? Don't have to worry about it. So really, really good. Then the biggest ground forces change, in my opinion, really, really big change. Ground force construction has been changed to be like industry. So instead of having the current system where you have like 10 facilities and 320 BP per, and you kind of got to split it up, you just have all of those facilities providing a certain capacity, like construction factories, and then you just build like that. This is going to make things a lot easier. Really, really happy with this change. Going to make it ground forces a lot more enjoyable just off that. Then we have ground force organizations. A new tab called organizations has been added to the ground forces window. What this will essentially allow you to do is create a formation. Think of it like unit series, where you can create your form, and this is awesome. It's actually really, really cool. You can create your organization before you do anything, before you build anything. Create your organization, and then you can say, "Hey, build that organization for me. Construct that organization for me." This will not only massively help SM starts, like TN starts. This will mean that you can theory craft to such an extra degree and not have to worry about it. And then you can tell your industry, hey, build that, and then when it's built, it will all come into each other, okay? And then you can use copy and update to improve those formations accordingly, and then change out the organizations. Awesome, just amazing. It's fantastic. Okay. And now we're kind of getting away from ground forces. Now we're going to be moving on to some of the bigger changes here as well. Bunch of instant buildings can be added. We've got actually we do have one more thing to discuss with ground forces. With troop transports, you can now put default ground forces. They will automatically be assigned, and that will then instantly load them like ordnance would. Very, very good. You also have load assigned ground templates. Works the same. So you can load assigned ground templates that you've actually added on, which is fantastic as well. Instant build. And then you can also do instant build stuff with parasites. Good job. Particle beams are now being changed. They are now being reduced to 300 tons regardless of strength. This is a significant upgrade to them. Big change for particle beams. Particle beams getting buffed right there. So we're going to move on to ships. Okay. But this is a massive, massive change. I keep saying that. But refit costs. You can now see the cost of refitting to the select class from each eligible class and the cost of refitting from the select class to each eligible class. So you can now see what you can refit to, okay? And you can also see the cost to do so, okay? That's really big. Now, what I would love to see is a build. Can we build the same ship together? But this should also just help with that because you'll be able to see the cost differences. And if it's within 20%, should work. Around that. We've got some UI improvements such as Empire mining production or combat comparisons. These are important things that will help. We have a new change for people who don't want to go through what I showed in my Trans-Newtonian Start series. And that is the Create Habitable System button. So you can now just hit Create Habitable System in the system view. So that will allow people to just hit Create Habitable System in the system view window. And then it will just create a system with a habitable homeworld, and that homeworld will have everything that you need on it, and then you can just create the race on that world, and then you're good to go. We'll simplify that system for people, and will mean that more people can play in other systems besides Sol, which is really nice. Now we get into the deep dive of the biggest thing about this update, and why this update, besides all the other stuff which has been great so far, why this update matters, okay? Why should you care? Why should you play Aurora now? Why should you really want to enjoy the game with these changes? And that is the complete overhaul and ongoing lift and change of missile warfare and point defense warfare. So you may know that in a lot of the games, I like to build box launchers. I like to spam box launchers. And the reason for that is because box launchers work the best in the current system. Why do they work the best in the current system? They work the best because the system is a zero-sum game. So what that means is either you get through the enemy point defense systems or you don't get through the enemy point defense systems. So you either end up in a situation where your missiles go in and they explode on the enemy and the enemy is 200 million kilometers away and they can't do anything about it. Or you fire 1,000 missiles at the enemy, they defend the missiles, and then your fleet is completely useless because you don't have any more missile ships to shoot at them, and you're just like, well, I guess I'll just go back and get more missile ships to try and get through the point defense system. And that's why box launchers become valuable, because you need maximum salvo sizes. Maximum salvo size is what wins wars with missiles nowadays. So, what Steve has set out to do, he set out to do three things. Make bigger missiles more useful. Make the zero-sum game either lessened or eliminated entirely. And improve the doctrinal ideas and the decision-making of the player. So, on the first one, he is buffing. He's adding various systems for bigger missiles, and he's buffing those bigger missiles in various ways. In the second one, he is changing point defense so that leakers will get in, and you will need a multi-layered point defense to be able to defend against missiles, like real ships. And third, he's adding a ton of new kind of weapon systems that you can play with in missile warfare. So let's start. First off, fractional warheads will now exist. A fractional warhead is essentially a warhead, essentially a warhead, any warhead, with fractional damage, okay? So, if you have a warhead strength of 0.2 or 1.2 or whatever, you can add that damage to, say, shields or ground forces or whatnot. So instead of like, oh, if you have 1.2 warhead strength, well, it's still only one warhead strength. But what this notably will do is, let's say you have an anti-missile missile, and you have a warhead strength of 0.2. You have a 20% chance against a 67%, or you have a 20%, excuse me, you have a 67% chance with a warhead strength of 0.2 to destroy a size 6 missile, okay? So this kind of gives some armor to missiles in terms of the AMMs, but it allows you to decide, do I want smaller missiles, but there's less of a chance to explode on, I can save some space with warhead strength, or do I want a little bit larger and have a much higher chance to destroy the missiles, or have a 100% chance to destroy if I hit? And it won't affect armor, but it will affect shields, ground forces, population, shipyards, that kind of stuff. But now we get on to the big boy. Point defense changes. You're going to see this on screen. You're going to see all these things on screen. So, to start with, the point defense modes are now the following. We no longer have area defense, really. We kind of do. Things have been changed. We have point blank defense fire instead of final defensive fire, okay? And this will tell the fire control to only engage missiles that are attacking a target within 10,000 kilometers. So that is our current final defensive fire, basically. Same thing with stealth only. Then we have the new one, ranged defensive fire. During the movement phase, the fire control will engage missiles that are attacking a target within the maximum range of the weapons assigned to that fire control. This could include missiles attacking a target from some distance from the mountain ship, or missiles that are detonating a specialized warhead at some distance from the intended target, if the target is more than 10,000 kilometers away. The chance to hit for any assigned weapons will be based on the actual range of the missile at the intended point of detonation. This will be the default mode for automated fire control assignment. So what this will do is basically act like Final Defensifier, my understanding is, but also allow you to shoot at stuff that is further away up to your max range. Within the range of your fire control. So this will be useful for things that you expect you have to deal with at range, but also will allow it to fire closer within. Okay? But the negative you're paying for that is that you're not getting the benefit of point-blank defensive fire, which assumes they will always be at 10,000 kilometers, and so you'll get a hit bonus with point-blank defensive fire if you were just focusing on 10,000 kilometers. So because it will automatically go to 10,000 kilometers at hit range. Okay, so that's the price you pay. Then we have area defense, which will engage the closest in-flight hostile missile within range assigned fire control, and will fire on that missile. Steve writes, the above is likely to lead to point defense weapons and their associated fire controls being divided into 3 broad categories. Those intended to only provide close protection against standard missiles, those capable of dual roll and standoff warheads, and those intended for area defense, tagging missiles that pass through their engagement envelope. The latter capability is likely to require a more substantial investment in order to provide fast tracking accuracy at range. That's the start of the iceberg, okay? Then we get 2 new missile options that have been added. And this is in order that he's been adding these things, okay, guys? Active terminal guidance and missile retargeting capability. These are 2 packages you can put on. ATG, or active terminal guidance, is 0.25 MSP to a missile. Pull on onto a missile. And then missile retargeting is 0.5. What ATG will do, called active terminal guidance, adds an increasing percentage bonus to the final missile hit chance, starting at 20% for 1,000 RP and then again 90% for 128,000. The bonus is displayed as a multiplier, not as an addition. The cost of ATG is equal to bonus divided by 100 and requires Uridium. So what this will do is you will have, let's say you have a 40% hit chance and you have the first one of these techs. You'll then get a 1.2 multiplier to that, so you'll get a 48% chance to hit the target. Okay? This will improve, now that we've lost agility, hit chances for missiles. Then we have the very interesting missile retargeting. There's a new onboard status package. This will provide ultra short-range target assessment capability using relative movement and damage projection to determine whether the missile will conduct a successful interception. If the onboard AI of the missile determines a low probability, the missile will not detonate and it will continue past the target before attempting to engage. So what this will essentially mean is against any ship or missile, your weapon, your missile, if it misses, it will try again. If it misses again, it will try again. If it misses again, it will try again until it's destroyed. Now, for against ships, they're likely going to blow the missile out of the sky after a few too many attempts. But for, say, enemy missiles coming in, if your anti-missile missiles can get there quick enough, who cares if they've only got a 20% hit chance? If you can hit them, if you can keep hitting them over and over and over again, you will eventually score your hit. Now, the negative of this is it's a big component and it's expensive. It costs 5,000 research points. And it costs a total of 0.5 MSP in terms of size for that missile. That's a big amount of space that you're dedicating here. So what we may see is larger AMMs besides size 1. Okay. Now let's move on to laser warheads. Re-added from VB6, laser warheads will essentially, and you'll see on screen the exact details, but they'll essentially, you can fire them at a target. They will detonate with it from a certain distance from the target, and they will generate essentially a laser that will fire against the target. They'll act like a normal laser you would in game. And when that laser fires, point defense can't do anything about it. So the enemy must find a way to deal with the missile before it gets within that range. And the closer you set your detonation range, which you can set, the more damage you'll do, because that's how lasers work. They fall off over range. So this is to assist the idea that the zero-sum game needs to be defeated. Because if you can do at least some damage and they can't do anything against you, that'll be good. Now, it's not going to be overwhelming, right? Because these are going to be expensive, they're going to be quite big, and if you have to detonate them further away from the enemy, that means that the enemy, you should detonate further away from the enemy. That means that the enemy's armor is likely to do better, or their shields. Okay. You'll have to design your laser wellheads to feel like where you want them to do best in terms of that strength capability. And there are techs that will improve this, and it will also force the beam player, or the point defense player, the person that's being attacked, to have a multi-layered defense where they have a way to deal with longer range missiles, so either AMMs or laser turrets or fighters, but then also have enough armor to be able to take hits. Because right now, if you had enough point defense, against a missile fleet, you don't need any armor at all. Like, at all. But with this, some warheads might get through. A laser warhead might sheen into you, and if it gets a lucky hit and blows out an engine, boom, a ship just explodes. So, those laser warheads are going to be really, really cool, but they are going to cost quite a few resources, so keep that in mind. They also are 0.25 size, they're bigger than a normal warhead and whatnot. So, next up in the missile changes, new point defense mechanics. So, what we now have, again, more point defense mechanics. The new point defense system is based on the concept that all point defense fire in the same increment takes place simultaneously, with the exception of close-in weapon system, or CWIS. Therefore, all assignments of weapons to targets happens before any combat occurs. This assignment is done at the level of individual shots, not weapons, against individual missiles, and not salvos. This is less efficient than the current method, which very unrealistically knows the results of every point defense shot before the next one takes place. Which I'm not sure how that works, but Jesus. Under the new mechanics, there is likely to be overkill on some missiles while others leak through. So you can see on screen right now, there's a bunch of different additional changes. There is a massive white paper of all the changes in detail that you can read through. I'm going to slowly scroll through all that for you guys in the episode. But suffice to say, what this will mean is you will have to tell your firing controls how many shots do you want per enemy missile, and what focus or what priority of which fire control should fire first, right? So your point defense should fire first, and then maybe your anti-ship weapons can have a go with it as well. And how many shots of those will actually shoot at each missile. So let's say you have a railgun. Okay, I want one shot per target. In this case, missile. You've got to then estimate and kind of come up with an idea of how much should be firing at what and what should be doing here. And what this will mean is you will sometimes overestimate, you will sometimes underestimate, and this will allow missiles to break through, especially when you're first dealing with the first salvo, okay? So, because if you're firing 3 shots against one missile and they all miss, that missile's getting through. Right now, in C#, what's happening is you'll fire all your shots at that one salvo, and if one of them shots kills a missile, the other shots will just shoot at the other missiles, okay? But if one of your shots in this situation kills a missile, the other 2 shots will just not be useful. They just won't. This means that it's all the shots against these individual missiles instead of shots against the salvos, and the chances of leakers is way higher. Because you could just get very unlucky. Because if those 3 shots, if you put 3 shots per target, and those 3 shots against one of the missiles just all miss, well, you're out of luck. The missiles are going to impact you no matter what in that circumstance. But there are ways to improve your chances there. But that gives a TLDR of kind of what the changes are going for. But I'd suggest reading them. Again, it'll be in the description below, and it's also on screen right now, and you can have a look. Next up, electronic countermeasures and electronic warfare is being changed. So, ECCM is being changed from a multiplicative to a multiplicative. So there'll be a lot less powerful ECCM and ECM. There will also be more direct things such as missile jammers, fire control jammers, and sensor jammers, and you can put them on your ships, and these will be less powerful than what we currently have, but they'll be more direct, so you don't have to waste as much tonnage if you just want certain kind of capabilities. Again, I'll leave them on the screen. Then we have a very big change, missile decoys. So missiles no longer have ECM, but they can still mount ECCM. That might change though. Instead, missiles can be equipped with decoys to attract anti-missile missiles and point defense fire. So essentially, you can add decoys to a missile, and when they are going towards a ship, or AMMs are going towards them, there is a chance of the attacking missile or attacking shot to shoot at the decoys based on your tech and based on your decoy electronic warfare strength. Okay? So if you have really good electronic warfare and your opponent doesn't have good ECCM, they are going to have a much higher chance to shoot at the decoys. And then when you think about this in regards to the point defense changes, ladies and gentlemen, if 3 shots are all shooting at those decoys, like if those shots get assigned to a decoy instead, that missile will just go straight through because you just assign 3 shots to a decoy, and that's going to be a really, really big deal. So this is a really big boost for missiles, but obviously, as he says in there, ships will also probably be getting decoys as well. And it just makes a lot more sense than ECM. It makes you really good at this. So you may have 1 missile, it may have 4 decoys. You can build a really big missile, have a ton of decoys, and use that to try and penetrate like a torpedo through towards the enemy with 1 big, massive size 80 missile. Plasma carronades got a big change. They're now like lasers, except for the changes on the screen. They are much smaller. Their damage fall off is going to be much better in this regard, and this does mean that carronades might be a lot more useful now. A lot more useful. Next, we have multiple warhead missiles. So you can now have missiles can divide their war strength into multiple attacks. Okay. So what this will mean is for AMMs, you can have, let's say you have, if you combine it with the fractional warhead strength, let's say you have a total warhead strength of 1.2. We divide that into 3 warheads at 0.4, as specified by Steve. That will then give you a % chance to intercept or do damage to 3 different missiles with that 1 missile. Okay? That seems very useful for AMMs, and that means that a much bigger AMM might be very valuable if you can do that. And then you add in the retargeting capability on top, and then you've got a very good idea right there. We also have minimum AMM range. This is pretty big as well. You can now set, the minimum range at which it will not fire AMMs. So don't fire AMMs within this area so that your other point defense can open fire as well. And then finally, after all of that talk and all that ranting and going on about missile changes, the MPRs are getting their design changed. So we talked about this earlier, but they're going to have bigger ships, they're going to use more broader weapons, and they're not going to have just themes, they're going to actually progress properly. They are going to have a proper design philosophy, selected independently. This is going to affect the difficulty and how you play the game to such an extent I don't think we truly know yet. But yeah, that's all the changes in 2.2. I hope you guys enjoyed. Steve's probably going to bring out more. I decided to do this video not as polished or different, but more just my thoughts, my rant, and I hope I got across, and hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time. Just like and subscribe. I hope you're excited for 2.2, and bring it on, Steve. It's gonna be a good one.